You know, like I said earlier about neither rain nor sleet nor hail nor snow or icy roads. This man drove all the way from Mississippi, so it had to have been at least 800 miles.
It was 1,200 miles to here.
1,200 miles through this storm that everybody else is they can't show up, they can't deliver the mail, they can't do anything, and this man drove right straight through it. Thank you for being here, Terry.
Thank you. Well, it takes me about a year to do a poem, so I'm doing a story. And it doesn't hurt my feelings a bit to read it to you. To give you a little background on this, I had a little stock farm in Tucumcari, New Mexico. And I was just north of town, northeast of town a little bit, and had about 300 acres that I'd put into wheat and alfalfa. And then I leased about another 1,000 acres that half of that was in alfalfa and the rest was in wheat. So I ran about 1,500, 2,000 head of wheat pasture cattle, and also baled a lot of alfalfa hay. So and my father-in-law had a ranch pretty close next door, so he would always call me over. I was never busy, didn't have a thing to do, so I got to come over and help him a lot. But he called us one time when a bank had called him about the Clabber Hill Ranch, which is north of Tucumcari, next to the Conscious Lake, was taken over by the bank. They wanted us to clear all the cattle off of this place. Most of the time I've been ecstatic about being able to get a horse back and out in the country 50 miles from town, but I knew the ranch. It was hard to work, hard on cowboys and hard on horses. The Canadian River runs right through the place, and no matter where you move the cattle, you have to cross that damn river. The Canadian is quickie in places, real brushy in others, and in other places it's quickie and brushy. But my father-in-law in all his wisdom took the job, which means myself, my brother-in-law, and my sister-in-law would be his help. Well, the four of us headed out early one morning. We found most of the cattle in the first pasture and headed a bunch of beef masters to the pen. We were patting each other on the backs, and the cattle headed out, and we're just driving with no problems at all. One old cow in front seemed to lead the whole bunch to the house, which was what we wanted. A Judas cow is great. She will lead all of them in, and we can use her to get the rest of the pastures brought to the pens. When we got inside of the river after rounding a small hill, we noticed right away that the herd got smaller. So we sped up and pushed the herd across the river. Now on the other side, our speculations were correct. We had lost about half the bunch. But we kept pushing hard to get what we had to the pens. They were starting to get real rowdy and wanted to scatter like a bunch of quail. We got there with a bunch, about 100, minus a calf and a 2-year-old bull, which we picked up after we penned out. Now we got to looking at what we had in the pens, all beef masters, old cows, a couple of old bulls, about 50 calves. These calves ranged from a couple of weeks old to yearlings and a couple of 2-year-old bulls. Not many of them younger stuff that had brands. Trucks showed up, and we got them all loaded. And one of the neighbors came over. We told him what we were doing, and he allowed us, he wouldn't take that job on a bet. It wasn't because he didn't like the bankers, it was because he knew how the former owner had run the place. He said the old man would hire local town kids and wanted a cowboy for a day. He'd let them gather the place or ship to or brand. He'd tell them let the bulls and the dries or anything that would put up a fight just drop out and not worry about them, getting them to the pens. This was every year for a number of years. We're guessing that this is the reason we had a little trouble getting these things across the river. We huddled up and decided we were short-handed. We needed at least one more cowboy, and a dozen would have been better. Yep, we got one more. It was my brother-in-law's dad. Oh, Irvin, and really, we couldn't have asked for any better help, except that he liked to carry a gun, a small .22 pistol with bird shot for snakes and bulls that might get to fighting. Couldn't get back the next day, so we started the following day with a full crew and fresh horses. We hit that river with a bunch, going hell-bent for leather, and that .22 pistol working overtime, and we crossed with all but one of the cattle we started with. Bet you can guess which one it was. It was that old lead cow. Don't know where she went, but we'll get her tomorrow. Now, at the time, I only had 2 head of horses that could be ridden. The others were colts and not old enough, and some weren't even started. So the only thing left in my remuda was my wife's barrel horse. He was real fast, and he could buck my butt off any time he wanted to, but he wouldn't even crow hop with my wife, which was a little aggravating, but you live with what you have. I just loaded old Buck my butt off and headed to the Clapper Hill. Now, unbeknownst to me, Irvin decided that the 22 pistol was not big enough, because what we had left was most of the bulls and the old cows that had not been in the pens in years. And in their minds, we're not going. So he pulls out this .357 Magnum, which he had reloaded some of the shells with bird shot instead of slugs. The first circle, I was on the outside, which I needed with buck my butt off, and we all gathered all but 1 cow, and them in the pens by noon, loaded by 2. Guess the big gun did the trick. It was decided that we'd all gather that last cow. It was a principle of the thing, not to let her outsmart us. We found her at the backside of the pasture, and she was tired, and we were, and so were our horses. Here's where the old saying, you can shoot off your horse once, but that second time, the race is on. Well, that doesn't hold true if someone shoots a .357 Magnum right next to you. We started pushing this old cow back to the river. Now at the river, she decides she's not going to cross, and stops and faces us, and she is also on the prod and tired of being pushed. Irvin decides one good shot, and she will head across the river. Me and Buck my butt off, we decided to we're standing right next to him when he let loose the blast from that hand cannon. Buck my butt off, jumped sideways, and the old cow saw an opening, which was right under me and my horse. She knocked us down, stomped around a while until she's satisfied, and then she headed out east away from us. Now me and BMBO, I got tired of saying Buck my butt off, got up, figured out there was nothing broken, found a piece of skin that once was on my arm and I decided I didn't need it anymore. So off we go to see and I know this is going to be what's going to happen. By the time I get to the scene, old mad cow, not the disease now, was lying there motionless. I asked Irvin, what happened? He said she was surely a Japanese cow. I said, what the heck are you talking about? He allowed us, she started to run at him as she had run at me. Irvin said, I couldn't take a hit like that, like you took. So I shot her at her nose and turned her. But I guess I hadn't replaced all the bullets with shot, because she ran right into that .57 shell and committed suicide.